But the humans, they weren't running. Their spaceports were busy. Yes, but launching defense platforms, not refugee ships. Their communication networks blazed with activity. Not distress calls, but noise, arguments, music, declarations, endless streams of chaotic data. Corin adjusted a sensor feed. He saw human cities, brightly lit, people moving, living, seemingly unaware or uncaring of the cosmic eraser bearing down on them. The void stretched endless, blacker than spilled ink, dotted with faraway stars like tiny, cold diamonds. Aboard the hidden asteroid monitor post, Corin of the Xylar watched the displays. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, each independently tracking different data streams. Below him, nestled deep within the rock, were the last few thousand Xylar, refugees from a horror that had swallowed civilizations whole. Their world, Xylas Prime, a jewel of logic and crystalline cities, was gone. Not destroyed, but silenced, emptied, like countless others. The main display showed a blue planet, Earth, home to the strange, illogical species called humans. For weeks, the Xylar had watched, expecting the evacuation signals, the panicked flight, the desperate scramble for survival that every other known species had undertaken when faced with the approaching phenomenon they called the hush, or sometimes, the silence. It didn't have a true name, only descriptions whispered in fear. It was a wave, an influence that crept across star systems. It didn't shatter planets or vaporize populations. It simply erased them. Minds went quiet. Societies dissolved into listless apathy. Connection, memory, identity, all faded like watercolor in the rain. The Xylar, masters of probability and pattern recognition, had calculated the odds of survival. They were 0. So they had run, preserving a fragment of their people in deep hidden pockets like this asteroid base. "They do not understand," murmured Lara. Corin's second, her voice a low thrum. "The data is clear. The silence is inevitable. Resistance is statistically insignificant." "Then why?" Lara gestured a delicate, 3-fingered hand towards the image of Earth. "Why do they stay? Why this defiance? It is illogical." Corin focused one eye on her. "They understand the data. Lara, we intercepted their analyses. They know what approaches. Humans," Corin said, the word itself feeling alien and strange on his vocalizers. "They are not governed solely by logic. We have observed them for cycles. Their existence is a paradox of fragility and ferocity. Perhaps they value something more than mere continuation." "There is nothing more valuable than survival," Lara stated, a core tenet of Xylar philosophy. Corin turned back to the display, watching a tiny flicker of light far beyond Earth's orbit. Relay Station Calo 7. A minuscule outpost, manned by a handful of humans, directly in the path of the silence. "Perhaps," Corin mused softly, "they are about to show us." Lara missed Earth. She missed the smell of rain on hot pavement, the chaotic energy of city crowds, the comforting weight of her daughter Maya's hand in hers. Maya was 6 now. Lara kept her picture taped above her bunk, a smiling gap-toothed face framed by messy brown curls. That face was why Lara was out here, earning credits for a better life back home. Lara adjusted the calibration sequence on the primary comms dish of Kilo 7. Sparks showered harmlessly from the panel she worked on. Reflecting in her goggles, the station was old, a relic from humanity's early expansion phase, mostly automated but still requiring a human touch for the tricky bits. Its main purpose was boosting signals across the vast emptiness between star systems, a lonely but vital job. Home, Earth, felt impossibly far away. Her small crew, just 5 others, kept the place running. John, the grizzled commander, Rorik, the quiet medic, Lena and Sam, the cheerful botanists tending the hydroponics bay that supplied their air and food, and Ben, the data tech, always lost in streams of information. A klaxon blared suddenly, harsh and insistent. Red lights flashed across the narrow corridor. Emergency alert. Lara ripped off her goggles, her heart lurching. She scrambled towards the command center. Jan was already there, his face grim, staring at the main console. Ruik stood nearby, hands clenched. Ben's fingers flew across his console, his face pale. "Commander, it's confirmed. Sector 9 just went dark." All comms, all energy signatures, gone. Just like 8 and 10. Report, Jan snapped as Ilara entered. A cold dread seeped into Ilara's bones. Sector 9 bordered their own. The silence. It was closer than predicted. Much closer. Helm. Status? Jan asked, his voice tight. How long? Jan asked Ben. All systems green, Commander, Lena reported from her station, though her voice trembled slightly. But sensors are picking up anomalies. Energy readings at the edge of the sector. Unstable. Weird. Ben swallowed hard. At this speed, maybe 12 standard hours. Maybe less. 12 hours. The words hung heavy in the small room. 12 hours until the silence washed over them. Ilara thought of the reports, the fragmented data from systems that had fallen silent. Not explosions or destruction. Just emptiness. People forgetting who they were, losing the spark that made them sentient, becoming hollow shells. Orders from Earth Command? Ilara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jan looked up, his eyes meeting hers. He tapped a command, and a message scrolled across the main screen. It was simple. Terse. Maintain station integrity. Maintain communication link. Hold position. Earth stand. Hold position. Ilara stared at the words. Hold position against nothing, against an invisible wave that erased minds. It made no sense. Why weren't they being evacuated? Why weren't they told to run? Commander, Rorik started, his voice strained. Respectfully, sir, this is suicide. We have escape pods. We could— A link to what? Sam cried out from the back, his usual cheer gone, replaced by raw panic. There's nothing left out here to talk to. Everyone else ran. The Xylar, the Qatari, the Fen. They all fled. Why aren't we? Negative, Rorik. Jan cut him off, his voice firm, though Ilara saw the fear flicker in his eyes. Our orders are clear. We hold. Calo 7 is the primary deep space relay for this sector. If we go dark, Earth loses a vital link. Jan slammed his fist on the console. Because we are human. We don't run. Earth Command has a reason. We follow orders. The command center fell silent, thick with fear and resentment. Ilara looked at the faces around her. Jan's forced resolve, Rorik's quiet terror. Sam and Lena clinging to each other. Ben, lost in his data, perhaps seeking an escape there. And herself, she felt a cold knot of fear. But something else too. A stubborn spark. Run. Leave Earth to face this alone. Leave Maya? No, she couldn't. Even if it made no sense. Even if it was hopeless. Hours crawled by. The station felt unnaturally quiet. The usual hum of machinery drowned out by the oppressive weight of anticipation. Ilara tried to focus on diagnostics, keeping her hands busy, but her mind kept drifting. She saw Maya's face, heard her laughter. She remembered arguments with her own father, a stubborn old engineer who always said, "If it's broken, you don't throw it away, Ilara. You fix it, or you find a new way to make it work." Later, Rorik approached her while she was checking a power conduit. His face was ashen. "Ilara," he whispered, glancing nervously down the corridor. Jans locked himself in his quarters. He's not responding. And Ben's just staring at a blank screen. He keeps muttering numbers, but they don't mean anything. Sam and Lena disappeared. Ilara found their bunks empty. A note left behind saying they were taking escape pod beta, trying to outrun the silence. Ilara felt a pang of pity, not anger. She hoped they made it, though logic told her they wouldn't. Nothing outran the silence. Ilara felt a fresh wave of cold. The silence wasn't even here yet, but its shadow was already falling over them. Fear and despair were weakening their minds, making them vulnerable. "What are we going to do?" Rorik asked, his voice trembling. Ilara looked at him, then down at her hands, stained with grease and coolant. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Find a new way to make it work. She thought of the chaotic signals from Earth. The music, the arguments, the sheer noise. Why broadcast that? Unless it's not just noise, she murmured. She looked up at Rorik, a sudden crazy idea forming in her mind. An idea born of desperation and a refusal to simply fade away. "Rorik, I need your help. We're not going to run. We're not going to hide. We're going to do something else. We're going to get loud, Ilara said, a strange certainty settling over her. What? Warwick asked, bewildered. The first tendrils of the silence arrived not as a wave, but as a feeling, a subtle wrongness. Ilara felt it first as a slight pressure behind her eyes, a faint buzzing in her ears. The lights on the station seemed to dim slightly, though the meters showed normal power levels. Colors looked faded. Sounds became muffled. It was like the universe itself was holding its breath. She found Ben slumped over his console. He looked up as she approached, but his eyes were vacant, unfocused. The numbers, he mumbled. They keep slipping. Hard to hold them. Ilara gently touched his shoulder. Ben, it's Ilara. Can you hear me? He blinked slowly. Ilara. Yellow dress. Picnic. His words trailed off. A memory fragment dislodged, floating away. The silence was here. It was starting. Panic clawed at her throat, cold and sharp. She fought it down. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. She needed to think, needed to act. Warwick appeared at the doorway, his face tight with fear. It's happening, isn't it? Yes, Ilara said, forcing calm into her voice. It's starting, but we knew it would. Remember the plan? Warwick nodded, though he looked terrified. Get loud. Their plan was desperate, perhaps insane. Based on Ilara's hunch about the Earth broadcasts, they theorized that the silence fed on order, on predictable patterns, on quiet contemplation. It erased complex thought, individuality, the very things that made sentient life vibrant. But what if it couldn't handle chaos? What if raw, unstructured, emotional noise could disrupt it? Earth wasn't just broadcasting random data, it was broadcasting humanity itself. The messy, contradictory, beautiful, terrible symphony of human experience. Okay, Ilara said, taking a deep breath. Warwick, I need you to get to the main transmitter control. Override the safety protocols. All of them. We need to push the amplification gain way past maximum. Kilo 7's primary function was amplifying signals. Ilara's idea was to turn that function inward. To use the station's systems not just to relay but to generate and focus a beam of pure chaotic human expression. They didn't have weapons to fight the silence. But maybe they had something else. Maybe they were the weapon. That could overload the core. Warwick protested. It could tear the station apart. It might, Ilara agreed grimly. But the silence will erase us if we do nothing. Which risk do you want to take? Then Warwick hesitated for only a second. Okay, I'll do it. He hurried off towards engineering. Ilara turned back to Ben. He was humming softly, a tuneless, repetitive sound. His eyes were cloudier now. She needed his help accessing the data core, the archives, the stored logs, anything that contained human voices, music, history, anything real. Ben's eyes flickered. A spark of recognition. Maya, small hands, sticky. Ben, she said firmly, shaking his shoulder gently. Ben, listen to me. Maya, remember Maya? She pulled the small, worn photo from her pocket and held it in front of his face. My daughter. Remember? Yes, Ben, hold on to that. Think about her. Think about anything. Your first pet, your favorite song, the stupid argument you had with Lena last week. Anything. Don't let it smooth things out. She pointed to his console. I need access to the cultural archives, music files, historical recordings, personal logs, everything. Slowly, painfully slowly. Ben's fingers began to move across the keyboard. Commands appeared on the screen. Sluggish, full of errors he had to correct. It was like watching someone wade through thick mud. The silence was actively working against him, smoothing out the pathways of his mind. Ilara felt it too. A growing lethargy, a desire to just sit down, to close her eyes, to let the quiet wash over her. Memories felt distant, fuzzy. The face in the photo, Maya. Yes, Maya. It was getting harder to recall the sound of her laugh. Fear coiled in her stomach. This was it. This was how it happened. No, she whispered fiercely, clenching her fists. She started talking, forcing words out, anything to break the encroaching mental fog. Okay, plan, access archives, route audio and data streams to the primary transmitter. Rurik bypasses safeties. We need chaos. Mix everything. Music, speeches, log entries, engine noise, error codes, static. More, Ben, she urged. Give me more data. She grabbed a spare datapad and started frantically typing commands, linking systems that were never meant to connect. Alarms blared as she bypassed firewalls and security lockouts. The station groaned, protesting the unnatural demands being placed upon it. Alara started feeding the streams directly into the transmitter buffer. A jumble of sounds began to echo faintly in the command center. A snatch of opera, a child's nursery rhyme from a crew member's message, a heated political debate from an old news archive, static, laughter, weeping, a recipe for synth noodles, a fragment of a love poem. Ben grunted, sweat beading on his forehead. He managed to open a directory labeled Personnel Logs, Unfiltered. Raw audio recordings, messages sent home, moments of frustration, joy, boredom, perfect. The pressure in her head intensified. The air grew thick, heavy. She felt a strange pull, a desire to stop, to let the noise fade into a peaceful hum. It was seductive, the call of the silence, oblivion disguised as peace. Maya's laugh. The memory surfaced, sharp and clear for a moment. Alara clung to it. She started singing, loud and off-key, a silly song Maya loved about a purple space monkey. Purple monkey in a rocket ship, zoom, zoom, zoom. Her voice cracked, mixing with the cacophony pouring from the speakers. Commander locked his door. Rorik's voice came over the comm, strained. Can't get him out. Ben? Fading. Alara said, her own voice feeling thick. He's loading data, but he's fading. Rorik, how are the overrides? Almost there. Damn these protocols, designed never to be bypassed. A shower of sparks crackled over the comm. Okay. Safeties are off. Game controls are open. She's all yours, Alara. But the power core is redlining. Got it, Alara yelled. She looked at the transmitter controls. Output direction. Focused beam. Target. The densest part of the anomaly readings. The heart of the approaching silence. Power level. Cranked far beyond any recommended setting. Data feed. The chaotic, swirling mess of human noise she and Ben had cobbled together. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the activation switch. This was it. Either they created a shield of human chaos, or they overloaded the station and blew themselves to kingdom come. Or, maybe, most likely, it would do nothing at all, and they would simply be erased like all the others. She thought of Earth. Standing firm, broadcasting its own defiant noise, she thought of her father. Find a new way. She thought of Maya's smile. On the Zara asteroid base, alarms shrieked. Energy spike. Lara reported, her 4 eyes wide. Relay station Kilo 7. Power readings are off the scale. They are exceeding reactor limits by factors I cannot calculate. Taking a ragged breath, fighting the mental fog that urged her to stop, to rest, to be silent, Alara slammed her hand down on the activation control. Koren leaned closer to the display, watching the tiny point of light that was Kilo 7. What are they doing? Broadcasting, another Zoller technician reported. A wide-spectrum signal, highly chaotic, massive energy surge behind it. It's not like any transmission protocol I've ever seen. It's just noise. Directional? Koren asked. Yes, aimed directly into the silence anomaly. Lyra stared, her logical mind struggling to comprehend. They are attacking it? With noise? It's suicide. They will overload their systems. They will attract its full attention. Koren watched, mesmerized. The human station, a speck against the encroaching cosmic dread, was screaming into the void. Not a scream of terror, but a defiant roar. A jumble of sound, light, and raw energy. The anomaly, its energy signature, is destabilizing near the station, the technician stammered. The field, it's parting, flowing around the human broadcast. Then, something impossible happened. The sensor readings near Kilo 7 flickered. The smooth, inexorable advance of the silence seemed to ripple, to distort. Report, Koren snapped. Lara made a soft clicking sound, the Zoller equivalent of a gasp. It worked. On the display they saw it. The creeping edge of the silence, the subtle distortion of space-time that marked its presence. encountered the beam of chaotic energy from Kilo 7. It didn't dissipate, it didn't retreat, but it couldn't advance through the beam. Like water encountering a solid object, the silence flowed around the small bubble of human-generated chaos, leaving the station untouched within a pocket of turbulent reality. Korin continued to watch, his ancient, logical mind grappling with the impossible. They hadn't destroyed the silence. They hadn't repelled it with force. They had annoyed it, confused it. They had carved out a space where it couldn't function, using the very essence of their chaotic, emotional, unpredictable nature. They did not run, Korin whispered, more to himself than to Lara. They chose to fight, not with weapons we understand, but with themselves. He looked at the image of Earth, still blazing with light and incomprehensible signals. He thought of the Zolar hidden in the dark, preserving logic, while sacrificing everything else. Had they chosen correctly? The station Kilo 7, battered and dangerously overloaded, held its ground, a tiny, defiant spark against the overwhelming dark.